Hi, and welcome along to the next of these Integral Health podcasts with me, Ben Calder. Thank you very much for joining me and listening in today. And I'm really delighted today to have my social media friend, Rich Morley, join me today to talk about his health history, to talk about his practices within Tai Chi and Qigong, and to talk about breathing and just the value of breathing for your health, and how learning to breathe correctly and working with your breath is such a valuable part of being well, looking after yourself, and it's got nothing to do whatsoever with man buns. So, Rich Morley, great to see you. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me here. It's nice
Yeah.
to actually see you in person and chat in person.
It is indeed, and it's been really valuable to me. I'm not even sure how long we've been friends on social media now, but it's been I'd say it's been a couple of years maybe. But one of the things I've really valued over the last year is just the comedy gold that comes through your Facebook feed on a regular basis. It puts a smile on my face, makes me think, and I really appreciate that. So for those of you that have not come into contact with Rich before, in the description for this, we'll have websites, we'll have social media pages and so on. Go and follow Rich, because if nothing else, he's going to put a smile on your face, and you can learn some really useful stuff within that as well.
Sweet. Everyone should.
Everybody should. More laughter in your lives. So I think what's really useful is if we begin with just a little bit of history, Rich, about why did you come into doing Tai Chi and Qigong, and why has mindful movement and breathing become such an important message that you're sharing with people?
Well, it's a bit sad to start with, but when I was 16, going into 17, I started to feel ill. I started to feel I had less energy than I had, which was a bit odd when you're that age. And I started to be generally unwell, and I couldn't work it out, nor could the doctors. So I spent some years getting worse, going back to the doctors repeatedly, being tested for various things, and I never actually gotten any answers, really. So it wasn't so cool. So it took them 6 years to diagnose me. Then I was only diagnosed by accident. And then I was told really we couldn't do very much for me. Especially at that time, people didn't know too much about fibromyalgia. Since then, it's become very big. I'm starting to realize a lot of people have it. Which is mainly women get it, and it's mainly people in middle age. But unfortunately, people in their teens can get it, and if you get it then, it's much worse. The effects, because there are multiple effects, probably 11 or 12 really bad ones with it, hit you harder. So, I had to go to university a little later than all my friends by a couple of years. When I got there, my health was gradually getting worse. I had to drop out for a year, do my exams a year later, because I was at film school and I had to finish everything up. But sadly, I had to have a scribe to do my writing for me. The hands were so stiff. So by that point, I was in agony all the time, because fibromyalgia affects the muscles, ligaments, and tendons around all your joints. That was moving around. So the pain moves around. You can't get used to it. Your body stiffens up. You can't move. You don't get any deep restorative sleep. My legs would give way under me. I had terrible headaches. It was all really pretty crap. I'd go up and down, but mainly I was ill and just getting worse. Then I was working, got medically retired from a job because I was so ill at the time. And then I spent a few years on sickness benefits because I couldn't do anything else, really. So I tried multiple things. I tried aerobics, aerobics. I tried swimming, and that almost killed me. Tried hypnosis, tried acupuncture. Nothing worked. So none of the Western medical interventions could help me. And so I just about given up. And then my friend Maxine suggested I try Tai Chi. Now, at that time, I had very little motivation to do anything. So I waited for about 6 weeks off. She was on a Saturday, the class, and she could never make it. So I just about gave up, wasn't even going.
I mean, and this is the thing that amazes me about this, to be somebody that in their late teens can develop such a chronic, debilitating illness, you know, and I've worked with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, lupus, and
Yeah.
other things for many, many years. And I really know just how deeply people's lives are impacted. So how did you even keep any motivation to just keep on trying things
That's
over?
very interesting. So I went to my first class. I dragged myself in there, which is quite funny actually, because I walked in, there was a Chinese gentleman standing in the corner, and so I went over, introduced myself quite awkwardly, didn't know whether to bow or shake his hand or whatever. And he seemed quite taken aback that I was actually talking to him. I thought, well, this is a weird teacher. And then the real teacher came in. It was a white guy called Colin. The other guy was a chef in a Chinese restaurant who wasn't So anyway, after the awkward bowing and finding who the real teacher was, I took part in the class. It was a 2-hour class. I had to sit down repeatedly, but I managed to struggle through it. And on my way home, I actually felt a slight bit better, just a slight bit, but that's better than I'd felt in some years, quite frankly. So when I got home, I had to go to bed for about a day. But the next day, about 24 hours later, I managed to practice for a couple of minutes. Because I'd actually seen something in it, I'm like, sod this, I'll give it a try. Because I had no motivation, nothing, but I was so desperate. I thought I was on my way into a wheelchair, really. And I went back the next week, struggled through some more, and I just practiced. But for instance, I couldn't actually sit upright without leaning against a chair for more than 30 seconds. I could sit upright and I'd have to collapse into a chair. So it was quite a poor start, but I just stuck with it. I started very, very slowly. I started to see the benefits back because I had seen discernible benefits. And I saw something in it. I stuck with it. And fortunately, I'd found the right type of teacher. There are a lot of Tai Chi instructors about, but unfortunately, most of them are teaching a slow, wavy arm stance around.
Aren't they just?
Yeah.
Arms and breathing, yeah.
Exactly, which is nice, and it's good movement for older people and stuff, but it's not what Tai Chi is. And as I got to find out, Tai Chi is the highest level of martial art. And after people weren't being paid to teach the elite bodyguards of the Chinese royal family and things like that, the onus moved on to health in China. And people were paying big bucks for that because people were living, Tai Chi masters live 3 times as long as everyone else. So as I started to learn all these things, and I had a teacher who trained with an authentic master, and he was a vice president of the Tai Chi Union for Great Britain, I started to get better. I started to see more results, and I started to tell my friends about it. I got more enthusiastic, and I started to drag people into the class. And then the more I practiced, the better I got. So so I went from definitely on my way into a wheelchair, collapsing, dropping things on my feet all the time because my hands weren't working, all the other malarkey. A couple of years later, I shattered my collarbone terribly, jumping off big rocks in some woods on a mountain bike because I had all the juice.
Yeah.
And before I became ill, I was the world's least coordinated person.
Sure.
So for me to suddenly be able to do all these things opened up a whole new world of adventure for me. And then after a little while, I was like, geez, I can't believe this, And then that's when I set out to train to become a teacher, because I had trained to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be a filmmaker forever, but I wanted to help people because I saw that real Tai Chi could be a driver for real change in people's health and lives, as it became in mine, and I became the sort of poster boy for this sort of thing.
I mean, that's amazing. I love how much of a change to, like you say, go from a point where you're an uncoordinated person who's in pain, can't cope with things, to a point where you can shatter your collarbone through mountain biking, in just a few years. It is an incredible turnaround. So understanding what you understand now about Tai Chi and Qigong and their mechanisms of action, what's your impression about what it was about those things that helped the fibromyalgia for you? What made that change from your understanding of the mechanics to that benefit in health?
Well, one of the things that Tai Chi does, we have a thing called Zhongding, or central equilibrium in Tai Chi, and many people think that's your center line or some sort of thing like that. But really, it's a code for putting the body back into the state it should be in. It rectifies the body. It helps to balance the body out. For instance, with the standing, we do the Jam Jong post standing that we do. This allows you to put your muscles back into the right place because we're using stabilizer muscles to try and move. The movement wants to hold us up. We're constantly fighting gravity. So it releases all the hidden problems inside of the body, all the holding tensions of body, armoring from emotions, from injury and stuff. So it's putting us back into our natural state, but it's also giving us the allowing us to, if we talk about Qi, which some people feel is a little woo-woo, we learn, you know, as we grow up, we start to lose all the stuff, the prenatal Qi that we get from our parents and from the universe, and we, you know, have to use breathing and eating and stuff. But as you get older, that all starts to wane. So we've got what you find in the sets of practices of authentic Tai Chi and Qigong, the ability to put your body back into its natural state, but then to recharge that body so we have more energy. We don't deplete our energy levels like other people. Plus, you move with such grace and finesse and control that you use less energy to do everything. So I think it's, you know, what we find with Tai Chi is you've got the health practices and the energetic understanding practices of the Taoists married with the finest of the martial arts. So you've got things that can, as you start to see, the practices, which have mainly been hidden from most people for a very, very long time, are the things that can give you the great super health, give you the internal understanding of yourself, give you the balance in life of mind and body. And that's a great thing about it all, is it balances you out as well. And in all aspects, I feel Tai Chi is a martial art of balance, of course. So I think it works on several levels. It's rectifying the mind, it's rectifying the body and putting us back into harmony. So I was incredibly out of balance in the state I was in. To go from that to not just doing drop-offs, but becoming like, you know, I'm an elite level martial artist nowadays. You can see the veracity in my claims.
And that's the beauty of it. I find that it's not something that's limited by who you thought you were previously. It's something that anybody can achieve if they've got good tuition and if they're willing to practice. So for anybody that's interested in exploring Tai Chi or Qigong, what for you would be some of the things that you would suggest people look for as a way of having a constructive and a healthy and a valuable experience rather than just the wavy arm dance?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a problem for a lot of people. Some people get taken in by the silken robes or the stories of the Tai Chi style. For instance, there's a certain group in this country that claim their Tai Chi is 3,500 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Was given to people of a small fishing village by 9-foot-tall beings who were called the Sons of Reflected Light. And it was kept hidden for thousands of years till an old Chinese gentleman taught a young boy we met in a park playing football in London. Where Tai Chi's only been called Tai Chi since the 1850s, and we know exactly when that was. And the Taoist poet who came up with the statement for it used to call spirit boxing or cotton boxing or other things up to that point. So it's hard for people to unpick it. For instance, myself, I started with a very reputable teacher, but I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Perhaps I should go to another Tai Chi class in the week to bolster what I'm learning. So when I got a bit more energy, I went to someone else. You know, I was still ill. I was feeling a little bit better, but I went to a class where after the second week, a gentleman told me my Qi really shone out. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm exhausted. I got nothing. You're full of it, fella. So there's a lot of bullshit out there in the Tai Chi and Qigong markets, really, let's face it. And people get taken in by silken robes and lots of bowing and various talk of hidden secrets, and they get themselves righteous about it. I feel that just like back in the past, there was only a certain amount of people you can really see who, if you want to develop your health or any of the other great things you'll get from Tai Chi, should seek. So in our country, what I would recommend is people go to the Tai Chi Union for Great Britain website, wherein they can see the ratings from intermediate to advanced to senior level instructor. And I recommend you go for the advanced or senior level, really, because they're the people who've got the ideas. I myself, although I'm not part of that institution now, my teacher helped set it up. I got taken aboard as a senior level instructor. You're supposed to have been doing it for 20 years, but I hadn't, but my skill level had developed so much. I tried when I was after 14 years, and I offered to knock down anybody who wasn't willing to believe I had the skills. But they weren't interested, so it took me 17 years. But yes, Tai Chi Uni for Great Britain, and check those people out. They're the people who have the closest thing to what people need if they want to really make their health better and to find a good quality level of the art with someone.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, within Qigong, one of the things that I try and advocate with people is, to a degree, to drop some of the mysticism that we pick up from, the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon style. We want to look like these beautiful, graceful, floating beings in their silk, as you say, but actually somebody that can come back and teach you pragmatics and can be quite explicit about, well, this part of your body is affecting this part of your body in this way. So if you make these changes, this will improve that state of practice and this will deteriorate it.
Certainly so. I mean, people will get caught up in wanting to get the effects of G feelings or all the other things. As I often say, do the practice, do it as precisely and accurately as you can, and you'll get the benefits. Rather than getting caught up in this or that, subtle changes in your postural alignment, understanding the connections, or the breaths going, or whatever you're doing, will see people through, rather than all these mental abstractions we get caught up in. Because that's the thing, everybody's been sold all the mysticism and all the fancy stuff, which is fine. But do the work correctly with the correct information and you get all the benefits and more.
And I think as well, it's really important. Certainly one of the things that I've found valuable in teachers I've been with is the idea that none of them are saying that this is it. This is the only way, and I've got everything. Having a teacher that still has a degree of fallibility, can acknowledge that they're still within their own process themselves, and they're still refining their own practice, and defer to their own teachers and their own kind of inspiration as well, rather than thinking that they've done their practice for whatever period of time and there just isn't anything else to be learned.
Oh yeah, absolutely. See it again and again. I mean, that's a great thing about Tai Chi, let's say. There is no limit on it, let's say. Yang Lu Chan himself, who's, Yang style Tai Chi, he said there are 13 levels to Tai Chi, and I'm on at level 9, he said. And he was the highest level person who was ever around in what they did. So there's no end of refinement, no end to your learning and knowledge, really, with these arts. Sometimes it's been said it takes 3 lifetimes to really understand Tai Chi. So that's great. I mean, I'm at an incredibly high level for most people, but then the higher level people are so far ahead of me, it's unbelievable. But then again, the stuff I can do looks unbelievable to most people, doesn't it? And make people stick to me and make them fly with one finger and all the other stuff I can do.
And I think for a lot of people as well, there's a little bit of confusion about the difference between Tai Chi and Qigong. So how would you define that from your perspective?
That's interesting. I think Qigong, because there's different types of Qigong. Some are medical Qigong, some are for general health, some are for longevity, etc. And there are thousands of different systems in there. I think that to a certain level, you get the same thing from Tai Chi and Qigong. Got certain specific training practices and modalities and breathing practices which will give you robust health. One difference is in Qigong, you couldn't defend yourself if you wanted to, but you feel robust and well. Tai Chi, you certainly could. There's another saying in Tai Chi which is train for the power and the health comes with it as well, which is another way of looking at it. So I think they work perfectly well together. I oftentimes teach Qigong to people who want to learn Tai Chi because I feel that they'll start to get the movement principles in. We're starting to build the health a little quicker than it will with the Tai Chi practice. But then Tai Chi can take over and give you the rest of it. So they're mutually complementary, but different in subtle ways.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that you mentioned in there, and I know it's a really big passion of yours, is right breathing or healthy breathing. So tell me a little bit about your ethos behind breathing, why it's become such a big focus of your work for people.
Okay, well, it's a major component of all the arts that I practice. And when I first started, apart from having to rectify my structure because I was hunchback and being incredibly ill and all the other malarkey, I was a mouth breather. Years of ill health because I would constantly have colds, flus, and all the other stuff, as well as the fibromyalgia. And I hadn't noticed. And it's only when I went to class and started to actually introduce me to some breathing, I realized that when I was a mouth breather, I wasn't even really capable of breathing through my nose, because if you don't breathe through your nose, it sort of starts to seize up. But then I started to realize all the incredibly bad things that can happen to you simply through mouth breathing. So I learned just basic diaphragmatic breathing to start with, but since then, I've learned 3 chambers breathing and Taoist reverse breathing, Yang-style reverse breathing, and whole body breath, and a morass of other types of breathing, which are all really super beneficial. But that's one of the first things I started to benefit from, because I could breathe. I could still breathe, even though I had no coordination, could hardly move. So that's something I could focus on. And that helped me also with my simple meditation practice I started to develop, because my mind was, I was very depressed and stressed, and my mind was all over the shop. So I found great benefit in it to start with. And over the years, I've seen a similar thing with a lot of people who train with me. And I also, I've met a lot of people I've managed to help simply by giving them some breathing advice. And I came to realize that I've got something for everyone. I can help people in many, many, many ways, many, many issues. But breathing is the swiftest and fastest way to help them, because I can teach someone something in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or an hour that they're getting benefit, they can feel the benefit and notice straight away. So I've become big on that, because it's something that can make a big difference in people's lives in real time, rather than going, yes, do this for 3 months, you're going to start to feel a lot better. Do it for 2 years, yeah. Right there and then, from from breathing to help with your stress and anxiety levels. So you can use breathing to, stop because if you're stressed and anxious, you're releasing more cortisol and more adrenaline and things. It's all coursing around your system. So the right breathing practice can lower the stimulus onto your sympathetic nervous system, and it can shut down can suppress the creation of these stress hormones in your system, which are particular, they're totally natural, and we need them for particular things. And that's what people don't understand as well, but we don't need too much of them. We need to do that stuff at the right time. So you can use breathing to calm all that down, slow it down, and change that around to drop stress levels in real time, which I've actually had a client monitoring recently, which is really good, because she had the ability to measure what was going on. And she showed with graphs how in only a few minutes she'd gone from quite a high, let's say it was 56 stress level, down to 8 in 2 minutes, let's say, from doing that. Wow. Similarly, you can use breathing to ramp your energy levels up if you start to feel fatigued, rather than reaching for some donuts and some chocolate or whatever it is, like most people will do. Use some simple breathing practices. That'll change things around. It'll stimulate you. It'll get a bit more cortisol, more dopamine, and ramp you up. So you can find these great benefits very, very quickly. And plus, because breathing is so powerful, most people don't realize how their breathing is affecting them negatively as well. In that, a lot of people who are stressed and anxious are chest breathers. And when you breathe up into your chest, and your chest muscles tense, and your neck muscles tense, use all the necessary muscles to breathe, your breathing's 1, shallow, and 2, fast, and 3, your rate of breathing sends messages, the rate of movement of your diaphragm sends messages to your brain to tell it if you're in a relaxed situation or a stress situation, or put you into fight or flight mode. So these people who are anxious and stressed, they're in a self-perpetuating mechanism, unfortunately, because of their breathing, all the messages and all of the stuff. So again, simple ways, if they understand, and you can show them some breathing patterns and how to breathe correctly, because 80% of people aren't breathing well enough, not taking enough oxygen in, not getting enough waste toxins out. So it's a powerful thing, and I can do it in real time. So that's why I've done a lot more of it.
Yeah, beautiful.
More people, yeah.
Beautiful. So you mentioned there were three things that I picked up on in there, which were mouth breathing, shallow breathing, and rapid breathing.
Yeah.
Are those for you the most common errors that people are making within their breathing? And are there others, or are there other patterns that you see that are also problematic within within kind of people's typical breathing?
I think the typical breathing problems are the mouth breathing, definitely, because it raises your blood pressure, as does the rapid breathing. So stress states. Shallow breathing and rapidity of breathing, they are really the main ones. You know, I don't meet too many people whose problem is doing slower breathing. Yeah. And as we found nowadays, slower breathing allows you to take, many people do deep breathing, but then again, it's quite rapid and uncontrolled. So we've found that slower breathing allows a good time for the oxygen CO2 exchange to take place, and your body can take more oxygen out, you get more toxins in. So like most people, you know, if most people who are stressed and stuff are breathing up to about 18 times a minute. Many other people are breathing roughly around, let's say, 12 times a minute. But the optimum amount of breathing is somewhere around 6 per minute, which is very different to where most people, especially the rapid shallow breathers. But it's a problem of non-education. We all start by breathing normally, unless we've got some sort of abnormalities. Unfortunately, we model ourselves on our parents and on other people we see around us, and that's what they're doing. Everyone thinks your chest needs to move up and down to get a good breath, and then that's all of that sort of shit's going on. So, you know, we're taken again out of our natural state to an unnatural state, and it does us more service than good. But yeah, they're the main problems. Also, people's postural issues affects the breathing, which they're not realizing, and not realizing how dangerous a bad posture is to you over time, especially with all the sitting you're getting nowadays. One other thing, though, I see a lot of people, especially who do spend a lot of time with laptops, is holding of the breath. When they're focusing or they're stressed or tense, holding on to the breath, which is equally not so good for you. So that's another problem you find. And they're the major ones, really. Yeah.
And I guess then as a simple tip that anybody listening in can take on board is if they breathe through their nose, slow it down and draw it down more into the lower abdomen, that alone, if they can make that shift, is going to move them more in a direction of health rather than disease.
Oh, really? Certainly. What I would say to tighten that up a little bit is first they should just sit quietly in the room and just see what their resting base rate of breathing is. Count the breaths to be aware of it. And if it is 12, don't try and force 6 in, but go to 10 or whatever it is. As you slow down the breathing, it's going to send messages to your parasympathetic nervous system and to your brain. It's going to release serotonin, and it's going to naturally put you in a restive state and calm you down in that restful state. So, but what I would recommend is, map out what your breathing's like. See if you're a mouth breather. Try and change it to the nose over time. But also just relax that chest. Relax your face muscles. Try and relax your neck and shoulder muscles. And to deepen the breathing down into the belly, again, simply with a deep diaphragmatic breathing that no one does. Simply get used to just pushing your belly out a little on the in-breath and pulling it a little bit on the out-breath. And that'll help to get the diaphragm working more, and you'll get a better exchange. You'll get much more benefits really, really quickly and simply. I can teach you much more about that stuff, but it's straight in.
And if you want to learn more about that stuff, you're going to check into Rich's links
come see me
later on and go and connect with him and do some work there. And you know, with people who are not necessarily local to you physically, are you able to do guided sessions with them online as well?
Yes. Generally with the breathing stuff, which is, as I say, as involved as the Tai Chi or Qigong. Generally, I do one-off sessions for people. So I start an hour. I teach them how to breathe in a much better manner. And generally, depending what they've come to me for, if it's for stress, to deal with stress, or to deal with energy levels, then one session should suffice. And I can teach them some really good techniques which will help to do that. So I generally give them a few techniques and teach them how to breathe in that time. With people with COPD or asthma, generally it's a couple of sessions to improve lung capacity, to teach them how to power the breath. With COPD, I'm going to teach them how to get the stuck air out of the lungs and stuff like that. And I've been doing a bit of work with people who are recovering from coronavirus as well. So teaching them how to breathe properly and to lift their energy levels up. That probably takes us a few sessions as well. But yeah, it doesn't take too long, and we can do it over Zoom, which is easy.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well that people who are struggling a little bit to recover from coronavirus, we kind of forget in some levels, I think, because of the media horror show, but we forget that it's a respiratory condition.
Yeah.
So changing how we breathe and improving how we breathe surely is only going to facilitate a better outcome and greater health if we do get infected, and it has an effect on preventing us from being infected in the first place. Would you agree with that?
Certainly, I really would. And it's another thing that people are not knowing about the breath is that deep, more powerful breathing actually helps to stimulate your immune system, to pump lymph around the body and to get to your heart. So it's building your immune system. So if you haven't had it, breathe more deeply. It'll help your immune system. And these are simple things we can do for ourselves to do that. Eating right, getting good sleep. But thinking about that, if you've got more powerful lungs, you're not going to suffer as deeply because your immune system's better and your lung power is better than the people who are not. Who are all the shallow breathing, staggering around anxious people.
Yeah, and there's definitely more than a few of those happening out there at the moment.
Certainly so. So yeah, they're just getting on board with a bit of that, and it just becomes natural. I found it very, very hard to start with because I can breathe through my nose, mouth breather, and all that. Incredibly shallow, rapid breather, stressed, anxious, depressed person. But working with it, it becomes natural very quickly because it is natural. It's anamnesis. It's not amnesia. It's forgetting amnesia. It's remembering how we used to be and getting that in because the body knows. It's our minds are getting away of all of that sort of thing. So it will rapidly become more natural and you'll get more benefits quickly.
And again, just staying with the kind of current situation that we have at the moment, how do you see the use of masks impacting people in both an obvious way within their breathing, but also more widely within their general state of health because of that?
I think on one side, it's giving people the feeling of safety and security going out, so they feel that we won't catch it. I think with masks is you're getting masks are just hopefully stopping other people catching it from you rather than you actually catching it from them. So it's just not getting spittle out there and water molecules and stuff that might carry some sort of thing. Unfortunately, the trouble is with the masks again, especially now people are moving on to cloth ones, if you haven't got proper respiratory ones, it's leading people to shallow, rapid breathing, and it's also leading to mouth breathing because people feel uncomfortable and they don't feel like they can get enough air in through the nose with the mask on while they're out. On the plus side, if people are only doing it while they go shopping or whatever, then it's only a certain amount of times per week or whatever that they're engaging in that. The trouble I'm seeing is the people who think they're going to be much safer. So you see people driving down the street wearing a mask or walking down the street wearing a mask when the chances of you catching something outdoors or in a car by yourself are slim to none. So those are the people who really need to think about, and people who are forced to work in them and stuff, they really need to take time to think about what they're doing with their breath and they'll have a better time of it because they're going to feel more fatigued at the end of the day because they're not getting enough oxygen in. So they're helping and hindering, let's face it.
And so the big takeaway from that is, as much as possible, only wear your mask when it's absolutely required, and give yourself every opportunity to breathe as naturally and as healthfully and as fully as you can.
Yeah, certainly. And get out into nature to do it as well. First thing in the morning is a good time. As you'll know, there are traditional times for training in the Chinese arts, first thing in the morning, like just before sunrise and the 12 o'clock and all of those things. But first thing in the morning is a great time just to get out anywhere, even just in some trees or whatever, and breathe deeply, and that's going to help set you up for the day. Unfortunately, with a lot of people you see jogging, because many people took up running and stuff. This past year, they're all hoofing up the side of a road, sucking it in through the mouth, get all petrochemicals and particulates and dust. So if you're going to go running, think about your breathing. Go run around a bloody park, for God's sake. Save yourself the health.
And I think that's a really interesting point that a lot of people don't consider, is that filtration mechanism within the sinuses that's there. That's why we have the mucus, that's why we have the hair, that's why we have the openings limiting in the way they are. Is there the body's natural mask? It's there to protect us, and contains a lot of immune information within the sinuses that, like say, if we're running along the side of a road mouth breathing, we're not getting that benefit at all.
No. Similarly, people see talking while they're all jogging inside of each other. It's all like, and they're not getting it. For instance, the thing about the nose is, like, from nose breathing, then that creates nitric oxide, which you need. Although I was doing a talk the other week and I said nitrous oxide, I'm like, nose breathing. But yeah, and your body needs nitric oxide for quite a few processes. Your body needs CO2 for quite a few processes, and all your systems need oxygen for all the processes. So your breathing's so much more important than you can possibly think.
Yeah. And I've seen recently as well, there's some quite interesting research going on over in Canada where they're looking to create a very simple delivery system for nitric oxide, because it's of effect on coronavirus.
Right.
So we can produce that within ourselves just by breathing through our noses.
Wow.
Cheap and easy, and 100% always available.
Yeah, totally. That's wonderful. I didn't know that. I like that. I mean, that's the trouble, unfortunately, in a Western society where we've been conditioned to rely on someone else for our health. Going to the doctors, being given tablets. People are living longer, but living fucking terrible lives. Rattling around, having that big thing with all the days of the week to delineate which pills they need to take, just so they can shuffle around and be in ill health and unhappy. It's ridiculous, but people are conditioned like that. For instance, I was on a train. I tried to work with people with fibromyalgia a few years ago. I've worked with lots of different people, from elite athletes to running the UK's first stroke rehabilitation study for the NHS. So I've worked with everybody in all sorts of, MMA fight, all sorts of people. And I went to support groups. I said, look, I've had fibromyalgia. I've managed this. Look what I can do. I'm willing to share this with you. Even if you get 10% more energy, 10% more health, 10% less stiffness, 10% less pain, how much better is your life going to be? None of them could accept it because they were conditioned to believe they're disabled. And so you get that poor me syndrome where they're just comparing complaints and comparing how ill their medication makes them. And they weren't willing to take it on board. And you just see it everywhere. So then after I gave up on that idea, I was on a train coming back from Cotswolds in New Year. And we met a woman who sat at the table with us who had fibromyalgia, who started telling us how positive she was about fixing herself. And my girlfriend said, Shannon said, well, talk to Rich. He fixed himself. He helps people. Get some advice from him. Now, the woman who told us she was so positive about all of this sort of thing, give me about 10 seconds worth of conversation. It was more interesting talking to my girlfriend, who knows a lot about plant medicines, herbs, and various things like that, and natural health. She was more interested in talking to her about what she could recommend for her to take. So we're still undertaking something rather than doing something. So it's a sad turn of affairs. So a little bit more personal efficacy in people's lives would mean a great difference to them, but they don't. So it's something everyone needs to think about, and especially again with breathing, something you can simply be doing for yourself at any time, practice anytime. You don't need any silken robes. You don't need a practice space. You don't need to say namaste. You can just do some breathing, kind.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, it's interesting as well. You talk about, what Carolyn Miss would have coined as woundology within these groups. That it's really about comparing symptoms and comparing where they're struggling, which, from my point of view, on an integral model, really is reinforcing the problem rather than considering the solution. And I know my own mum, who I don't know if she would even identify as having fibromyalgia anymore, but she certainly used to. And before she lived closer to me, she was in these groups as well, and her comments were exactly the same. It wasn't a positive and a constructive space the majority of the time, and so we moved her up to be closer to where I am. And now for almost 4 years she's done qigong, pretty much twice a week or more, and does her own practices at home, and physically is much better off, much more energy, much more positive, and it's really helped her to get through and to really change how she is with her life. So the stories are there, and it's that willingness to commit into doing, like you say, as opposed to taking something. The answer is not in the magic bullet. And far too many times I've watched people who say, well, I'm taking all of these supplements, but I'm not feeling any better. And it's kind of like, yeah, but you're still doing all of those things that are causing problems. Why?
Oh gosh.
Why do you expect to feel better just from taking one part of a solution?
Yeah. So that should be a part of your plan, perhaps, but yeah, not all of it. When I was first diagnosed, there weren't really any support groups. So I managed to find one. Well, a few years later, actually, after I was diagnosed, and I found one. I talked to a lady because I was like really upset about you'd say feeling disabled and being disabled and stuff, not being able to do anything, because I really couldn't do anything. And she just helped reinforce it for me. She went, no, if you do the things you could previously do. I'm like, no. She went, well, you're disabled, just get used to it. Disabled for the rest of your life now. So, and that was somebody supposed to be supporting me, and I tagged myself with that label even more, and it just helped to reinforce in my mind, oh, woe is me, my life's fucked now, I'm going nowhere.
Yeah. And for those of you listening in, you wouldn't have seen my eyes roll back in my head as Rich said that then. But, again, it's so important that, there's two schools, there's two sides on this for me. There's the constant reinforcement of the problem, which doesn't help resolve it. And then there's also what I see as the false positivism of, essentially people in that kind of postmodernist pluralistic state, that new age state, where everything's going to be okay. We can just be positive. And there's a denial of the problem. So we've got these two extreme camps that you can end up in, and neither of them is actually really going to get you out of the situation.
No, absolutely not. That's why we need to go back to the Tai Chi model of balance, being right in the middle there, the balance of all those opposing things. Yeah, it's the way people are, unfortunately. Then you've got the bandwagon effect, where people want to be part of something. So if you can be part of a moaning group of people who all sit around and moan and complain about illnesses, then you can label yourself as part of that group, so you belong to something, even though it's a very, very negative thing. You actually feel you actually belong to it. In fact, I met one lady in all the support groups I talked to, because they wouldn't believe me. Like, my doctors told me I'll never get better. You can't get better. You must be lying. I'm like, come on, let's stop this now. And this one lady said to me when she went, "Help! I'm not like these people. Please show me what to do." Like about 400 people I talked to. She's like, "Help! I came here. I thought I'd get help. I've been here for 3 weeks now. I'm getting nothing but sad."
But so grateful that she found you.
Yeah, damn right. I gave her some shit. She didn't stay with me for too long, but at least I put her in the right direction. She went off.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Rich. I really appreciate that, and I hope that for people listening, they've had a good sense of how making an active commitment into supporting themselves through a practice that they're getting from a good, reliable source can really make a difference with chronic conditions like fibromyalgia, and so many conditions as well. I mean, mental health being very much at the forefront, but that I don't think people really realize how their physical health can be so affected by lack of movement, poor movement, or by poor breathing. So
totally. If we just look at the old saying, when you see somebody who is a bit depressed, you say, "You look down," and they do. They walk around looking down at the floor all day, all hunched over like this. So you can see, you can create state change just by changing your posture or your breathing very, very quickly. You don't see or understand that.
It's one of the fun little tricks I've asked of people in the past is to look up to the sky and try and say, "I'm depressed," and really feel it, and then look down at the floor and try and say, "I'm really happy." And it's interesting how, just as a pragmatic exercise, how you almost can't even say "I feel happy" with your head down without wanting to add a gloomy voice into it.
Totally.
You can't say "I'm depressed" when you're looking up without it coming out in a different way. Maybe it's the pull on the muscles in the face, but
opening up.
Absolutely. So these are such little simple things, and of course, phone generation that we are now, it's amazing how many people you do see just walking around with that terrible angle up into their neck, hensing in through the shoulder and the wrist and the arm from where they're gripping a phone or trying to type or whatever, and it's such simple stuff on some levels.
Gosh, yes, but we don't realise it's better with laptop life and all of the other stuff. Everyone's developing forward head posture really early. We don't realise what that's doing. It's squashing your internal organs, shortening your muscles so you can't straighten up. Every inch of your head goes forward, it doubles the load on your lower back. You're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, blood supply is not going to your brain. It's just on and on. Especially, sitting. Sitting's going to be the new big illness. So all these people sitting, has so many negative aspects that come out of protracted periods of sitting that people just don't realise it.
Yeah, it's been dubbed the new smoking. That's the seriousness of it for your health. And I've had somebody who I know who's in their early 80s, and they've just been diagnosed with prostrate issues, and I know for a fact that they spend the majority of their day sat down. Just at a very, very simple level, I said, A, get up and walk more, B, move your hips more, so that you can actually get that drainage, that fluid movement through that part of your body, working to help reduce the inflammation, because it's for me, it's one of the big values of Qigong, Tai Chi, breathing, is that impact onto the lymphatic system.
Certainly, and the internal movement, just getting everything moving around inside. These hearts move the entire thing rather than all this segmented going to the gym. Oh, look, my guns. It's not all right, but the six-pack's not good for you, is it?
No.
All that tension and the whole thing's really not very good for you, but big condition to believe that sort of thing.
Yes.
That's quite funny whenever you meet the big muscly. I've met a few Super League players and various other muscly types and stuff, and they're even easier for me to throw around.
Absolutely, yeah, sure. It's that whole Greco-Roman idea that we have, that comes from a lot of those early kind of illustrations and statues, and yet we don't realize one of the reasons why a lot of those characters were portrayed in that way is because they were starving, having to fight their lives in gladiatorial style situations, so they didn't have an ounce of spare fat on them. It's not because they were doing 100 crunches a day to try and get some kind of weird rip going on.
I need an 8-pack now to fight that lion. Come on.
Too much watching 300. I know we all suffer from it as a social condition, this idea that society approves of or disapproves of certain images more, and so we buy into it to a degree, but what we're not really taught is that sense of, well, how do you actually feel inside with that? How is your experience around you? enhanced or not by that sense of how the body is.
Yeah, totally. People just don't perceive it. They're just like totally out of there. And of course, you can't see someone's six pack if they're wearing a shirt. I have a coat on. I've got a six pack. Oh, here, look. Oh, thanks. Now I see how muscly you are. I saw you're a normal person, but now, washboard arms. Funny enough, I don't have any of that. But if you punch me in the stomach, it's going to hurt your hand very much because kicks and punches just bounce off me. I've got iron robe.
Even better. Beautiful. An opportunity for another discussion there at some point on how we create our own iron robes. But in the meantime, Rich, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great having you on the Integral Health podcast here. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for that to do that?
Well, thanks for having me on. It's been fun. I'm just rebuilding my website. So this week, I don't know when this goes out, but for the next couple of weeks, hit me up on Facebook, Rich Morley. Find me on LinkedIn and Rich Morley. And you'll find some of my stuff there. There's plenty of tips on better breathing and posture and about a few other things on there. And some comedy, so you get best of both worlds. Don't forget, you learn better after laughing.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll have links to Rich's Facebook page, his LinkedIn page, and we'll put the website address in there because within a relatively short period of this going out, that website, the new website will be up and live. So, Rich, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed it and look forward to speaking to you some more in the future.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.
See you.